Good morning. How are you all today? Happy Monday morning. What a beautiful Monday morning it is. So sunny and gorgeous. Hope you all managed to get outside and enjoy it. And if you are over in Europe and it's cold, hope you're inside and keeping nice and cozy and warm. So welcome to today's Facebook Live. Really excited to do this one. This one's an interesting one because you know how I do talk a lot about hormones and how hormones influence your personality, how you perceive things, how you react to things, and in a sense they create this this all-encompassing kind of personality of you, depending on how your hormones are at the time and whether you're going through stress, where you are in your cycle, whether you're pregnant, you know, what's going on. It helps to create how you respond, how you perceive, and how you react in certain circumstances. So hormones are important in a sense of how you see the world and also how others see you. So I love talking about these little things, and particularly today I'm going to be focusing on the negativity bias and how hormones can influence your negativity bias, how you perceive negative situations, and ultimately having a strong negativity bias can block your happiness, can stop you from enjoying life. So I'm going to talk through that and hopefully kind of divulge a few things today in terms of how your hormones can influence that and affect how you are in the world and how you see negative situations, and how the hormones themselves can kind of perpetuate this cycle. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Naomi Judge. I'm a naturopath and a nutritionist, and I work in Sydney, Australia. And I help women discover the connection between health, happiness and hormones, because it is super interlinked. They are so related. If your hormones aren't balanced, if your hormones aren't working nicely, it's going to affect so many areas of your health and your well-being. And today I am talking about your negativity bias. So your negativity bias is how negative situations impact you versus positive. So if you've got a more intense negativity bias, if you sway more to negative thoughts, negative emotions, then you might have a more intense negativity bias and less so to positive situations. Some people might be the other way around. Now, ultimately, our brains are hardwired to seek out negative situations and enhance them to protect us. So Rick Hanson talks a lot about this in The Buddha's Brain. Worth reading. He talks about how we're more... our brains are wired more to avoid negative situations rather than to seek positive. So for instance, if there was some food and the danger of getting the food was death or injury, we would actually avoid that reward. So you can see how this can affect you through your life. If you're if your negativity bias, say, is more enhanced, then you're built more to avoid negative stimuli. You might see more negative stimuli. So it might actually stop you from doing things that can really elevate your life to a different place, change your aspect, your outlook of your life. So we can see how it really can influence all areas of that. Now, some of us have a more heightened negativity bias, and you might know that person. You might feel it yourself. You know, the cup's half empty rather than half full. Things might happen to you in a day. For instance, getting just simple things, say being late for something, always feeling like you're late, always feeling like you're busy, and then smaller things happening, saying maybe get a flat tire, might seem like the end of the world, whereas to others, it might just be, you know, this is a day in the life, oh, whatever, now this gives me more time. While I'm waiting for the NRMA to come, I can go on my iPhone and I can do some jobs, or I can relax and I can have a coffee. So it really changes the way we perceive negative situations, but also how we recall positive situations. So the more heightened our negativity bias, the more we focus on the negative, the less we remember, we recall the positive. It makes us over vigilant. So if we have a strong negativity bias, we will be more focused on negative situations, more focused on the negativity towards others. We might be more focused on negative body image. So we might have something about our body that we don't like. And if we've got a heightened negativity bias, we'll be more likely to seek out these things on our body that we are more negative towards. And it will become a little bit of... we will become infatuated by that, you know, a little bit stuck on that. Other things that might happen is embarrassing instances, something that happened in the day. We may run over it in our head again and again and again, thinking of it. Or traumatic experiences, whether it was a traumatic experience that happened more recently or 10, 20 years ago. If we've got a heightened negativity bias, we will run over that traumatic experience again and again and again. And it will cause hypervigilance, and it will cause our cortisol to rise more, and it will cause sleep disturbances, and also feelings of, I don't deserve it, I don't deserve love, I can't trust others, and also I am not safe. Those are kind of the feelings that you might feel with your place in the world if you've got a very overreactive negativity bias. So you can see that you may you may experience these thoughts from time to time. You may find that sometimes you're a little bit feeling more negative. You may find if something happens, it triggers a little bit of a negative cascade. But it's whether or not this heightened negativity bias is with you daily and stops you from doing simple things that maybe would help your life. For example, maybe doing something for work, volunteering for a project that would really elevate your job at work, you know, your skill set. Maybe it would lead to a rise. But the fear, the worry, and the doubt are the three things that really come with a heightened negativity bias. So fear in the world around you, doubt about yourself, doubt about others, and then constant worrying. So constant worrying is where we're unable to let go of things that are happening around us, things we see, things that have happened in the past, things that might happen in the future, and we're going over it again and again and again in our head. Now, the downside in terms of our hormones is that women seem to suffer more from a heightened negativity bias. And this may be something, I'll go through this in a moment, but this may be something to do with your estrogen, melatonin, oxytocin levels. So another thing as a negativity bias is the attentional bias. So this is actually where we've got thoughts running through our head, and it's those recurrent thoughts. And I definitely find women suffer much more with that kind of anxiety and reoccurring thoughts, particularly before bed. So not being able to get to sleep because there's thoughts going around in their head again and again and again. Now, another downside to this is this sort of attention on this, and this thought actually depletes your ability to find solutions to a problem. So if you've got this negativity bias that's heightened, you might be less likely to solve a problem, less likely to look at options, less likely to have an outlook of positivity, because when we're positive, we're able to find solutions, we're able to find answers. The more heightened the negativity bias, the less we can find answers and the less we can solve our problems. Hey Angie, how you going? Happy Monday to you. Hi. So what happens in a stressful situation is our sympathetic nervous system is activated. And what our sympathetic nervous system, it's part of our autonomic nervous system. We have our parasympathetic, which is rest, relax, restore. And then we have our sympathetic nervous system, which activates the fight-flight response, which is in our sympathetic nervous system. We might get constipated, our heartbeat might rise, we might get sweaty hands and feet, we might get tremors, we get adrenaline rush to our muscles, and we're in a high alert state. What this high alert state does is it increases our negativity bias. This fight-flight response makes us see more negative, dangerous situations in our environment. So negative, dangerous, this could be things in our environment, this could be things out of place, this could be people, this could be holidays, job prospects, anything we're doing, we're going to see it is a negative influence on our life, and we're also going to see it as dangerous. And so what this sympathetic nervous system does is it increases the cortisol in our body, it increases the adrenaline in our body, oxytocin goes down, and blood glucose tends to rise. So we have all this hormonal kind of movement in our body, as well as being more heightened alert, and then we'll also perceive these negative kind of influences. Now, this is all well and good when we're in a dangerous situation. So we see something and it's dangerous. We have to run out of the way of the car. We see one of our kids running towards a road, so we have to go and save it. All these, those dangerous situations. The problem today is a lot of people stay in that sympathetic nervous state. So when you relax down, that's when you can see options. That's when you can see different things that you can do. That's when our mind is more open to problem solving. We might be able to, work towards our goals. That's when we're maybe more in love with people. That there's all sorts of different hormones that go on. But when we're stuck in this sympathetic nervous system, it leaves us in this kind of negative state. And the problem with this is then we're unable to get to this kind of happy place, this happy situation, and that positive place. We forget positive things in our life. We forget happiness. We forget happy things in our life. So it's all about those stress levels, and it's all about how long do you let this stress kind of linger in your body, creating this kind of enhanced negativity bias. So I just wanted to talk about a few of the hormones that influence this. And cortisol and melatonin, these are a hormone that actually influence it. So cortisol, when it's elevated, it triggers your sympathetic nervous system, triggers adrenaline, and it triggers us to be in this strong negativity bias. So this heightened sense of fight flight. Now, Angie's just mentioned she's been in this heightened state for over 5 years, and it's difficult to kind of get help for that. But it's all about identifying what might be triggering that sympathetic nervous system and trying to get the adrenaline out of the body. So there's certain things that can trigger it. Obviously, there's past trauma. So sometimes when people have had past trauma, it's difficult to get out of this state, this sympathetic nervous system state. Other things that keep us in this sympathetic nervous system, food intolerances. So if we eat food that we're sensitive to, like wheat or dairy or soy, or we eat, or colouring, red colouring or preservatives or MSG, some foods that we're sensitive to, if we have something that we're sensitive to, it will trigger that cortisol cascade. It will trigger the cortisol in our body, and we're actually beyond that heightened sort of fight-flight response the whole time. Emotional stress. So emotional stress can be something small to something big. So the more you're in sympathetic nervous system, the more you've got a heightened negativity bias, unfortunately, the smallest thing will activate. So let me think of something, you're in a rush, so you can't get the washing out, or you've forgotten to get the washing out, so it won't be dry. That could send someone into a complete whirlwind. The washing's going to be wet. I won't, they'll start worrying, that they're in a panic. Really, and that it's not warranted, that panic is not warranted. That creates then more of a sympathetic nervous system, and it's kind of like this sympathetic nervous system negativity bias cascade that keeps going around and around. So one perpetuates the next, and it's really all about practice. It's all about practicing to allow things to happen and not let things worry you, which is, I can say it and it sounds easy, but it is just practicing, really just practicing to not to let things affect you, as well as working on the hormones at the root cause. So if it is cortisol, if it is a food intolerance, if it is low blood sugar, so if you've got any blood sugar problems, low to high blood sugar, especially if you get low blood sugar dropping in the morning at around 3, 4, 5 o'clock, that's going to trigger your sympathetic nervous system. It's going to trigger cortisol, trigger adrenaline, so you're going to fight flight in the morning because your body's in a little bit of a panic. So you really need to make sure that you're okay with your blood sugar, you're eating food that's keeping your blood sugar really nice and balanced. Other things that can trigger cortisol as well that we don't think about, They help at the time, but they trigger cortisol down the track. So they destabilize your nervous system. This is watching television. So television, yes, it can get you into that kind of beta wave when you're watching it. But if you're watching anything stressful on TV day in, day out, anything that's happening to people that's stressful day in, day out, animals as well, that can trigger cortisol. And over time, the TV can affect your nervous system in a negative way. The same with alcohol. So drinking a glass of wine, say when you've had a stressful day, can work in that moment. You know, you're drinking it, it relaxes you, but it actually creates a rebound effect on your nervous system. And over time, drinking alcohol and watching telly can feel relaxing, but they're actually destabilizing your nervous system and creating a sympathetic response. And it's actually changing your brain waves as well, changing your neurotransmitters and your brain chemistry. So when you're stressed, it's about actually getting into different habits. And noticing what habits you normally get into. So stress and pain, both of those trigger us to go into protective mode, protective mechanism. They change our brain chemistry, and we might make choices that aren't as good for us. So when we're in pain, for instance, we might want to go for sugary food. We might want to lie down. We might want to drink alcohol. The same when we're stressed, we go backwards, and we kind of make decisions that aren't so good for us. So you really need to come out when you're making a decision straight away. When you're making a decision for your health and you're in stress or you're in pain, you need to make it from up here. Really look at yourself and think, what do I need? Right? What do I need right now that's going to help me down the track? Not what do I need right now that's going to give me that quick fix, because that quick fix is very much where the human brain goes. So that's one way to get out of it. Think about what will help you long term, getting out of stress, getting out of pain. And it's normally things like a walk. So if you feel like watching telly, go for a walk, or at least do something different before you do your normal habit. Now, the issue with the cortisol is when that rises, it also changes two other hormones in our body. It changes melatonin, and it also changes oxytocin. And oxytocin creates this positivity in our life. It helps us to see positive situations. Oxytocin is a beautiful hormone. Oxytocin helps us to feel connected to people around us. It helps us to see positivity in people around us. It helps us to feel part of something, and it actually helps to bring down a heightened negativity bias. So oxytocin is a really important hormone. Now, I have seen that oxytocin is quite low in a lot of people. There's an issue with oxytocin, and what it must be is this sort of heightened cortisol that's happening. So oxytocin, as a woman, it will help you to adapt to stress. It will help you to get out of this fight-flight response and into more the tend and befriend response, which is a very good place for a woman to be to adapt to stress. Signs and symptoms of low oxytocin. I've done this before. There is another Facebook Live specifically on oxytocin. I'd probably encourage you to look at that because it's a really important hormone. But, difficulty reaching orgasm, constipation, feeling disconnected from the world around you, feeling like you're different. So, some people feel, I feel different, I don't fit in, or even feelings of grandeur. I'm special, I'm different from everybody else. That's that oxytocin being low, and it changes your perception of people, not just the world, but actually humans, that connection to humans, the fact that we are actually all the same and we're all one. We kind of don't see that. We start to think of ourselves as this separate entity from everybody else and very different and separate. Oxytocin will change that. Oxytocin will make you feel connected. So definitely, and oxytocin will counteract any cortisol rise that you might be happening through stress. And oxytocin is a love hormone. Oxytocin helps with breastfeeding, child delivery. So any problems with milk when breastfeeding, any problems having to be induced, those could be signs that you do have that low oxytocin. So getting oxytocin higher is actually really important for your health and well-being, but also kind of finding your place in the world. So have a look at that Facebook Live I did. I'll try and pull it up and pop it in the comments because it's a really important subject talking about oxytocin. So I also wanted to touch on estrogen. So estrogen's a biggie. Estrogen actually will interfere with our hormone uptake, and it can actually enhance as well the negativity bias. So this is where it starts to get quite interesting, because we can look at our cycle, we can look at our monthly cycle. Day 1 is the first day of your period, and you might go through 2 weeks and then you ovulate, then 2 weeks in your luteal phase before you bleed again. So during that cycle, estrogen fluctuates, progesterone fluctuates, and we have all these hormones going up and down. But what I'm finding, and what you'll know, because you'll see a lot of this online, a lot of people talking about this, is this estrogen dominance. And in estrogen dominance, we might have thickening, we might have endometriosis, fibroids, painful or sore breasts, we might have breast lumps, we might have ovarian cysts, we might have eczema, hair loss, depression, difficulty losing weight. Gosh, there's a lot, aren't there? And very heavy, painful periods with this excess estrogen. And what excess estrogen does is it increases our sensitivity to the negativity bias. So we're more sensitive to negative happenings around us. So one day we might be okay with something happening, and the next day it's the end of the world, and we'll be more sensitive. So for instance, I was thinking about this morning. You notice how sometimes the house is a bit messy, and God, it sends you into this state because you're heightened, you're on this alert, you're more sensitive to things. And other times you're totally chilled out, totally relaxed. Sometimes your partner can say something to you and it's fine. Other times you're just focused on this one negative comment they said, what perception, your perceived negative comment. Just think about these things that might go through the month, but definitely, hi Tanya, how's it going? But definitely that will happen, and you'll notice this kind of cycle, this cascade. So just try and catch yourself when you can see that actually hormones are influencing how you perceive, react, and are in the world. Instead of letting them do that, just catch yourself and just stop for a second and just kind of remove yourself from the situation, because that will help. Now, the difference between estrogen and testosterone, and this is the difference between men and women, and of course that's a broad spectrum, because I'm finding lots of men that are very estrogen dominant, and I'm finding lots of women that are very testosterone dominant, and it can change the way they are in situations. But if we look at estrogen makes us more emotional about our responses. We might make an emotional response, whereas testosterone has been shown to make you a little bit more analytical about responses. So you can see how the difference is, and that's not to say women are not analytical, of course they are. But if you've got, say, you're very, very estrogen dominant, you might be able to notice yourself making decisions based more on your emotions, rather than kind of an overall decision based on facts and what's going on. So just kind of look at that and tune into that, whether that's an issue as well. But being more emotional about something can also enhance your negativity bias. And so what testosterone does, testosterone makes us less emotional, and it can also decrease our sensitivity to negative bias. So knowing your hormone fluctuations and knowing whether you're more testosterone or more estrogen dominant will actually give you some insight into how you probably react to situations. Hi Angie. Look, even being premenopausal, even if you're premenopausal, and this goes for all women, you shouldn't have negative symptoms. So just because you're premenopausal, that shouldn't be an excuse for not feeling good, for feeling not yourself, or feeling anxious. Ultimately, if you're not feeling great, there's going to be an underlying cause. So, what you can do, Angie, is you can do things like you can get your hormones tested, see what your hormones are doing, and then make some kind of calls as into what you're going to do. But for all women out there, being premenopausal is not a reason to feel like crap, to feel anxious, to put on weight. You will be able to work on that. So there are things you can do. I've actually done a Facebook Live, and we can talk about this a bit more. I've done a Facebook Live on pre-perimenopause and perimenopause as well, because, from 35, we need to be looking, are we estrogen dominant? Are we testosterone dominant? And what we can do about that. Talking about hormones, I wanted to talk about progesterone and your negativity bias and happiness. Now, a lot of women are actually low in progesterone, and one of the main reasons women are low in progesterone is because in the hormone cascade and the whole scheme of things, we actually make cortisol from progesterone. So every time we get stressed, every time we're in a stressful situation, every time our blood sugar goes out, every time we have something that we're sensitive to, so every time our cortisol spikes, we're actually using up our progesterone stores. And our progesterone is a female hormone. It helps us to feel kind of happy, comfortable, relaxed. It regulates our menstrual cycle, keeps it to 28 days. It helps with fertility, helps with ovulation. So a lot of women actually have low progesterone. And what this does is it messes with us, because it creates a heightened estrogen or even heightened testosterone in some women, but also what it does is it messes with our serotonin. And when our serotonin is not working effectively and we're not using the serotonin in our brain that we've got, what that can do is that can actually cause unhappiness, more influence on the negativity bias, feeling more negative about things. And for example, if someone came up to you and they told you 2 positive things and 1 negative thing, you're going to remember and you're going to focus on that 1 negative thing, and you're not even going to go on those 2 positive things. So having low progesterone and working on your progesterone is really going to help you to be more positive, react calmly in situations, and actually have a less heightened negativity bias. And again, I do talk about this, but it's really important to get that progesterone up. Working on your nervous system, doing things like yoga moves that actually stimulate the pituitary gland. So actually doing the child's pose, any pressure on the pituitary gland. Actually doing meditation, the candle gazing is a wonderful way to get your progesterone up. I absolutely love candle gazing. And then B6 and magnesium both help to get progesterone up. But ultimately, meditation and working on your nervous system will help to get that progesterone up. Lastly, those of you, unfortunately, that have MTHFR, you're more likely to have destabilization of your neurotransmitters. So most likely to have elevated estrogen and also lower serotonin. So you do need, the more you work on your MTHFR with activated Bs, magnesium, zinc, maybe St. John's wort, maybe working on the liver to get rid of the estrogen. The more you work on your MTHFR, the more you'll find your negativity bias will be lessened, and you'll be able to focus more on the positivity. So definitely, if you've got MTHFR and you find that you do perceive more negative situations, more negativity kind of goes on around you, and you focus more on the negative, work on your MTHFR, definitely working on the serotonin levels, and that is going to help you. So if you do have a strong bias, or even if you just want to balance out a few things, you definitely need to work on a few areas. So we've kind of talked about the hormones, but teaching yourself to work, to see the positivity. So definitely writing down what you've achieved, writing down your wins, writing down what good things have happened, and actually focusing on those and kind of using that as a gratitude journal daily actually helps to switch off the negativity bias and lessen it. So that's why that works so well. And everyone talks about gratitude journaling, but this is one of the reasons it works so well. One of the best things to reset your nervous system is deep breathing. So in through the nose, out through the mouth, 10 deep breaths a couple of times a day, particularly when you get stressed, you can do that. So in through the nose, hold for about 3 minutes, out through the mouth. So do that daily. That helps to reset your nervous system, and that gets you from sympathetic into parasympathetic. And ultimately, that is the goal for many of you. I mean, some people do sit in the parasympathetic nervous system, and I think this is for another Facebook Live, but these are the people that have actually probably had to deal with trauma all their life, maybe abuse, maybe they've sort of cut off, maybe there was a very emotional event. So what happens when you sit in a parasympathetic nervous system is you don't feel as much. Your emotions aren't there. So sympathetic, you're more stressed, maybe more negative, but sitting in that parasympathetic, you're actually you don't want to put your hand up and talk about things. You don't want to be the one in class that goes, I know. You don't want to be the one in the meeting that gives your ideas, because you're in like parasympathetic. You're like, nothing's going on. Just maybe you've no thoughts going on, and there will be that fear that's stopping you. So definitely you don't want to be in one all the time, but most people do need to switch back towards that parasympathetic more so. So definitely the deep breathing can do that. recording your wins, gratitude journaling, balancing out your oxytocin and your cortisol. So the wonderful ways to do that, I mean, hugging and body contact with other people and animals is a wonderful way to do that. You'll find that if you go without body contact for a long time, you can start to feel it. So making sure you're getting daily body contact, hugging, whether it's with animals, kids, your partners, or just shaking people's hands on the street, just maybe not strangers, but actually that body contact. Socializing is a biggie, so definitely catching up for coffee, tea with your girlfriends, socializing with people on a weekly basis. That helps the oxytocin levels as well. And then yoga and meditation, obviously, and one that I'm loving at the moment, which is grounding. That just helps to balance anyway, so 30 minutes a day where you can of grounding. And don't let adrenaline fester, okay? So when adrenaline festers, what it is your body ability, it can't get the adrenaline out. So you've had that adrenaline spike, and the adrenaline sits in your muscles. It sits in your muscles and it causes things like shakiness, muscle aches and pains, cramping, twitching, heart palpitations, and just a general feeling of crawling on the skin and feeling very uncomfortable. So you need to get that adrenaline out of your muscles into the blood so your body can just get rid of it and process it and synthesize it into byproducts and get rid of it out of the body. So if you feel like you have had adrenaline spikes and it's sitting in your muscles, stomping on the ground like a toddler, that's why they stomp up and down, have a little bit of a toddler, scream and stomp. Those are the best ways to get it out of your muscles. You need to do something that's high impact, so boxing, high impact exercise, stomping on the ground, just to get that acute adrenaline out of your muscles and out of your body. And then obviously look at your hormones. What hormones are higher than others? And are you more negative on a cyclic basis? So if it's estrogen, maybe have a look at your estrogen in your environment. Have a look at your liver function. Are you having enough fiber? Are you having 40 grams of fiber a day? Are you getting rid of estrogen? Is your body detoxing? Progesterone, if you think you might be low in progesterone, work on having B6, work on meditation, work on your nervous system, work on bringing down your cortisol levels. And that's really what you have to look at on a daily basis. So definitely start with the gratitude, recording your wins, the deep breathing, and then move on to the hormones and just see how you can balance out those to help with your perception of negativity in your environment and in your life, because it will create more happiness and more positivity. So there we go. I hope that one helped you today. I absolutely love this subject, and there's lots more to it. It's a big subject, but I enjoyed it today. So I hope it has helped you guys. And thank you so much for joining. Thanks, Angie. Thanks, Tanya. I hope this helped you. I do have other Facebook Lives talking about how to estrogen and progesterone and also oxytocin. So I can pop them on the links below if that's going to be helpful. And for all of those, we're launching the Body Bounce Back Plan. Again, it's a 5-day Body Bounce Back Plan, and it's launching on Wednesday. It's a free 5-day plan, and we talk a little bit about this as well in the plan. So it's worth joining if you haven't joined already. I will post the link for you. So take care, ladies. Thanks so much for joining, and I'll talk to you soon. Have a great week. Bye.